we have a special guest. Her name is Dr. Jacqueline Lane. She is a cannabis investor and she is also an attorney. And she's going to share with us today about her experience in the cannabis industry. Miss Lane, how are you?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I appreciate the time.
So tell us, if someone wanted to contact you, how can we follow you? How can we look for you?
I have a YouTube channel and it's called Hemp 420. And you can also follow me on social media at Professor of Cannabis.
Professor of Cannabis. I love it. So with going on to our topic, we will discuss cannabis today with Dr. Lane. Please stay tuned. Now, I really wanted to pick your brain on it and just from your perspective, because what is it exactly that you represent business owners on?
Well, the truth is I write about it for the magazine. So I'm a writer about it and I'm working on a book. But I'm an investor actually into a growing operation, and I just, like an example of what I just did in December is I wrote up a proposal because we're looking for more investors because we want to expand the business. We want to merge the growing operation and the dispensary. So sometime this year, I'll actually be an owner of a dispensary and a growing operation, a partner.
Oh, nice.
So I'm really into it, and hopefully what I'm going to do is teach. It's the fastest growing degree program in the nation right now, but the problem is the schools are trying to catch up with writing courses, finding instructors, because a lot of instructors don't have experience. So I'm probably one of the few women, in the world that has the education and the experience to teach. So I'm now searching to write some courses, and what I'm thinking about is writing them myself and selling them.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, because the schools are just now doing it, so there's not a whole lot of jobs. But what's the difference whether I create it and sell it to them?
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm involved in the industry.
No, that's good to know, because you know what? I actually have so I live in a town that's 30 miles southwest of Chicago.
Okay.
And when I first moved in here, it was all farmland. And they've built a lot since then. There's been a lot of new homes. So the farms are slowly disappearing. So in my actual suburb or subdivision, we have a farmer, literally like I could walk to his farm.
Oh.
Yeah, and that's our first cannabis business owner in our neighborhood. So of course, he's creating a lot of attention, because he's got these huge fences covering up his business, and he literally, the property that he bought, it was very strategic. He did a very good job with it. Last summer, some kids actually went in and tried to steal some of his stuff.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I could see that, right?
We have a armed guard at our facility. So when the gentleman who is the primary, owner, investor, it's his farm. So when he's not there, someone else is. And in Oklahoma, not in all states, you're allowed to have an armed guard, and we do.
Okay, so that would be someone that if they wanted here in Illinois, they would need to check that they could have an armed guard. So this man was armed himself, and he went chasing after these kids shooting up in the air.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, that's how we found out about him.
Well, I don't know in Illinois if he was allowed to have a gun. He'd have to check.
Yeah, so that will be, FYI for the Illinois listeners, check
Yes.
it out. So you do have an armed
Yeah.
guard.
And it's totally legal, and we're allowed to have that. And that was written into the state law
Yeah.
for cannabis growers.
So what is your take into the whole operation? Are you bringing in the law aspect to it? How did you come up to team up with someone else?
Well, the owner or the main person that started this venture, we were friends. And I met him when I lived in Oklahoma, and we just became friends. And then he decided to do this. And I've been with him since the beginning. We went to a cannabis conference together. And I do a lot of research, and he did a lot of research. And so there's investors in this. And we've been in business now for almost 2 years. Come June, it'll be 2 years. So I've been working in the industry. Now, I'm volunteering my time. I don't get paid because I'm a partner. But the biggest thing, like you said, is the state laws. The federal laws are pretty easy to follow because it's just illegal, right? But the state laws are very complex, and they differ from state to state. So the state of Oklahoma will review, unless they have to have an emergency session, which they did last year to create new laws. So this year, the state politicians will come together, and I'm sure there's going to be topics about hemp and topics about marijuana. So the laws will change, I assume. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead when that happens, and I'll be keeping track of them. And I'll write articles, and that kind of teaches me and the people in Oklahoma, the business owners, what the laws are, how you read them. Some states are very complex, and nobody's the same. And you
Yes.
have laws for how to bag the marijuana, how to transport the marijuana. Oh, just all kinds of laws.
Yes, yes. So in getting ready for our meeting, I was looking at it from a tax perspective. What are the benefits? What are the things that someone's got to look out for as a business owner? How do I account? And in my research, I actually found about the 280E section, which just
Okay.
talks about exactly what you're talking about, that cost of goods sold are the key takeaway for this industry, because a lot of the ordinary typical business expenses, like let's say your law firm, right? You were able to take, the building expenses, payroll, versus in the cannabis industry, you're not allowed. So you got to be very strategic and very purposeful on how to be able to separate everything to where you do, benefit from the tax system, because the IRS is not friendly, because it's so new and it's going against previous laws that were written.
Yes. So what I tell business owners, and this is what we do, is you pay your taxes on a monthly basis. Now, we were doing our taxes ourselves, but we stopped doing that because accountants now are starting to specialize in
Mhm.
cannabis taxes. And we're going to need a whole bunch of them because this industry is going to continue to grow on a global scale. And it's very hard to find an accountant that specializes, or CPA that specializes in cannabis. And we're going to need them. So,
Yes.
but we did in Oklahoma, we found an accountant. This is what I tell people. If you are in the business of growing, or you own a dispensary, or you're infusing edibles, you're directly involved in that kind of stuff, you pay your taxes monthly. You hire an accountant in the state that you live in. So my accountant for my business is in Oklahoma because he knows Oklahoma's laws. He knows the tax basis for Oklahoma. The federal government's going to be the same. But you know what? Like I just looked this morning in Illinois, I didn't realize that there is a city there that just tagged on another 3% on top of your state and federal taxes there. So one of the reasons is when this industry shakes out, which it will, just like any other industry, is going to be because of the taxes. They're going to tax a lot of people right out of business.
Well, that's exactly what they're doing. That's exactly
Yes.
what they're figuring out that, so it started back in what, 2013?
Well,
Do I
the
have that
first
right?
state was California.
So they're
And
saying how they're going, how they have the 7-year period,
yes,
audit your files. So they're going back because they know that the business is so new that business owners are not properly handling their books. So that's exactly how they're weeding them out. So I love that you brought that up because you hit it right on the nail. That's exactly what they're doing. They're going back to the books and say, well, if you don't know how to do this, you shouldn't be doing it.
yes, and I can't stress enough to people. They'll come up to me and say, "Oh, I'm going to open a dispensary," and I said,
Mm-hmm.
"That's okay, but understand, like as small investors like us and individuals, the taxes are just going to kill us. I mean, you could be paying anywhere to 50 to 70%.
Yes.
Now you have a very small profit margin. So if you're in a small investment group or an individual, odds are with all these taxes and the laws aren't changing quick enough,
Mm-hmm.
keep this industry for smaller operations to survive. Now, you have the big ones, like in Illinois, you're dominated. I forgot to write their name down, but you're dominated by one company. Well, it's a wealthy company to begin with, so they can withstand all of this instability until it all works out.
Yeah. And I'm sure they have the proper accountants on their team, like you said.
Yes.
They know how to implement all those things from the beginning because they have professionals working within the business, 8 hours a day versus, like you said, smaller business owners. You're having to divide your time for operations, for, management, for different things. And it's just a one man show or 3-man show. So I could totally agree with you on that scale.
Yeah, the tax situation along with the laws, those are your two biggest hurdles. Hire an accountant that specializes in cannabis. And as far as the state laws, a lot of small operators can't afford these lawyers that are charging an enormous amount of money to read these laws because they're so poorly written. I mean, you just have to read them, and they're just so poorly written. And they'll get better because this is a new industry. So I spend a lot of my time reading Oklahoma law and just trying to figure it out. But if you have the time, you can. But like you said, a lot of business owners, I gotta work. I either gotta grow. I don't have time. They change it. They could have an emergency meeting,
Yes.
and then you have to refill out your application process every year, and that takes a while too. Just because you have the business for 1 year does not mean you have it for the next year.
Right. Right. Yeah, especially because, like you said, it's so new. Anything can change. And if you're not up to date on there, yeah, you have a lot at risk. So based on your experience, like, what is it that what is your exit strategy? Do you have one?
A what?
Do you have an exit strategy?
Oh, well, our exit strategy as a group, okay, so you cannot go bankrupt in the cannabis industry.
Really?
Yeah, so
I
that's
love that.
out. Yes, you are out of luck. So, our exit strategy is to look at the finances monthly. So since you can't file for bankruptcy, the best case scenario is you liquidate everything. And that's the only choice you have. That is the only exit strategy. Now, otherwise, you could sell your operation to somebody else. However, if you're doing that well, you're probably not going to want to sell and you're not going to liquidate, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
But if you wanted to, because for whatever reason, that is an option for you.
yeah, you don't have much choices as an exit plan in the cannabis industry today. You would liquidate everything and close the doors. And it depends how it's set up. I'm in a partnership. The partners are responsible for what's left. I mean, we would all have to dally up what's owed, and we'd either have to pay it or they'd come after us because there is no bankruptcy.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Yeah, what? So is that the reason why you guys were going after a partnership versus an S corp or a C corp?
Well, yeah, we're going after a partnership because it's just there is no benefit to anything else. To get into this business, I mean, typically you're going to need anywhere from, except for Oklahoma and Nebraska, entry into the business in Nebraska and Oklahoma is pretty straightforward, simple, not that costly. But outside of those two states, you're looking at anywhere from $200,000 to $800,000.
Wow. Is that on equipment? Where does a good chunk of it go?
Well, a good chunk of it, and it depends on what state you're in. Again, an application fee that is non-refundable can cost $2,500 to $60,000.
Really?
Yes. After that, you have to have your startup fees. You got to have your building, your employees. You got to buy the marijuana. I mean, you need startup cost. That here alone is going to cost you $100,000 to $200,000, depending where you are. Florida, you want to open up a dispensary in Florida, the non-refundable application fee is $60,000.
Wow. They probably see the traffic there. They see you're going to make it back right away.
Well, yes. Well, and they want to, yes. And Florida said, oh, we want real business owners. Well, now Florida is dominated by 2 or 3 companies, and the people aren't even from Florida. And a lot of people are complaining, saying, hey, people that live in Florida should have had an opportunity.
Yeah.
And so Illinois is probably the most aggressive in making sure women and minorities have somewhat of a chance. They've lowered the prices. You still have to follow all the tax rules and policies and procedures. Oklahoma's the most friendliest state to open up a cannabis business. The non-refundable application fee is $2,500 a year. Now remember, you got to pay fees every year to maintain your license. It's an interesting industry.
Yeah, what are those fees like? And what kind of training do you got to go through? Like how to, like
there is no training. You fill out an application. I helped fill out the application for Oklahoma. I think we filled it out in, when was it? October, I believe. Once you fill it out, it's pretty simple. You just copy and paste from year to year. But they're asking you about the investors. All the investors have to go through a federal background check. You can never be convicted of a felony. You can't have any bankruptcies. And again, this depends on the state. And in-state investors can be, I think it's 80% in Oklahoma. So you can have some out-of-state investors of 20%. So Oklahoma did some really good things. They made the entry cost good. They allow outside investors, but they don't allow those outside people to dominate the people in the state. You know, so there's good parts and bad parts to each of the state's laws, but the taxes, everybody's about the same. They want money from this process.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So they're saying that, I didn't look too far into how accurate, like if the money's even going there. I know Colorado has been getting a lot of good feedback about that they are actually putting the money back into the city, So in Illinois, that's, and I'm sure other states, that's what they're saying, that you shouldn't be too upset that you're paying these high taxes, because really what you're doing, you're helping the community, with the schools, the parks, all of that. And then the question comes about but is that really going to happen?
Yeah, and why aren't they doing it to the other businesses? And the downfall is you're going to see on like what's happening on the West Coast is the West Coast now is saturated to some of the states with their marijuana, so the prices drop. So this entire industry, so a lot of people are going into bankruptcy, because when the prices drop, you're still paying the same rent, you're still paying the same taxes, you're still paying the same wages with no write-offs. So, I mean, once you pay that tax bill, what do you have left when the prices drop?
Right.
So that's why you're seeing that out west. And what's going to happen, I predict, is marijuana will be legalized on the federal level, and then states will be allowed to do whatever they want. However, once that happens, the politicians are going to have to adjust that tax rate and some laws so businesses can just exist. Because the competition is going to be fierce once you make it legal on the federal level. Because see, you can grow marijuana, but you cannot cross state line. There is no competition outside of your own state. Once you're actually allowed to compete, that price is going to drop.
Yeah, so if you're dominating right now, you could sell it, whatever price, because there's the market for it there.
Right. So if I grow marijuana in Oklahoma, I grow marijuana in Oklahoma, I can only sell at the dispensaries in Oklahoma. Please, if you legalize it federally, I can sell it to California. I can sell it all over the world. Right now, I can't take it out of Oklahoma.
How long do you think it'll be before it gets approved by the federal government?
Well,
how many, how would that look?
Well, right now there's 33 states that have some type of marijuana legalized, whether it's recreation or medical or partial medical. Like Texas only has certain diseases approved for medical marijuana. And Oklahoma only has medical marijuana, but then we can go to Colorado, who has recreational and medical. So what I think, and there are right now, as of today, 11 states that may have it on their ballot for 2020. And let's say all 11 put it on there and it passes. That takes us up to 44 states. I think it's going to depend on the outcome of the 2020 election. But after that, Congress is extremely slow to move on everything. So whoever our next president is, might just sign in. I'm thinking they're just going to sign in an executive order, because if we're going to wait for Congress, we could be waiting forever.
Okay.
So, I'm thinking whoever next president's just going to do an executive order and say, you know what, it's legalized. You states do whatever you want. We don't want to be involved. The only thing we want is the IRS money, right?
Yeah.
So I predict that's going to happen within the next 4 years, not before the election. I think, if it happens before the election, I would be shocked. But sometime after the election, before the next presidential campaign. But the thing that's holding it up the most in Congress that people don't realize is social justice reform. That's really what's holding it up.
Hmm. So I don't know much about that. Can you school us on that?
Well, social, and Illinois is leading the way in that, and so is New York. So social justice means, okay, now if we make marijuana legal on the federal level, what about all these people that went to jail for minor possession of marijuana? So a lot of states are making laws now that says if you have a nonviolent, low-level, minor marijuana charge, it's gone. It disappears and you're out of jail. Because now it's legal to buy in these states at larger amounts.
Hmm. Okay. I did not know that. Good to know. So
Yes.
that's what affects it the most, and that's why they're dragging their feet on it.
Well, that's my opinion, because not only would Congress have to say it's not illegal anymore, now they got to figure out all these people in jail, what would be the qualifications for them to get out and their record disappear? You know, I think most of them could agree if it's nonviolent,
Yeah.
you know, there was no violence involved in
It
this.
was just you were caught with it.
Yes. You know, so I believe that's what's holding it back because nobody wants to deal with it. You know, it's,
Yeah, I could totally see that. I could totally see that.
mhm.
Huh.
But states have taken the lead on it, Illinois, New York, California. And so states are going to continue because states are broke. They need the cash. This is just going to continue to grow.
So you're saying after 4 years, you see this, being, getting to the federal government. As far as the workforce, so,
Mhm.
there's a lot of, I guess, misinformation or a lot of conflicted because, it's at the state level versus the federal level. So for the federal law, are they're required to give you a drug test? Like, how does that even play into for like the folks that are looking for jobs, the folks that are, you know, using it recreationally? They don't necessarily have a medical note, the employer, from what my understanding was, since it's not approved at the federal level, technically the employer could still decide whatever they want, whether or not they could drug test you for it or not.
Yeah, that absolutely true. I can have a drug policy that says I don't drug test my employees unless there's an accident and OSHA's going to get involved. But I can have that rule. And so a lot of companies still do pre-screening and will not hire you, whether it's medical or recreational, and that's also legal. A company could say, hey, we're going to randomly drug test you, and if you come up positive, we're going to fire you. It's all legal. So some of these cases are ending up in the court system. So I suspect a lot of these cases will be appealed, and it's going to work its way through the court system. But the real problem is the insurance companies, because
Hmm.
you got to remember that the reason we have drug testing policies is because of the insurance industry, right? Companies want to take that responsibility and unburden themselves of someone being on drugs and hurting someone or hurting merchandise. So now you bring in a multi-billion-dollar industry of the insurance industry. So this is just all mixes together. But as far as jobs, I mean, whether people want to believe it or accept it, the cannabis industry is creating more jobs than any other industry.
Really?
Yes. And they've surpassed 240,000 jobs in the last few years. I mean, it's incredible. So, and that's not going to stop, right? Because the business is just going to grow. So by 2025, and that's my theory that the feds will go ahead and legalize this, is because of the money, right? Everything's driven by money.
Yes.
So
Yes.
2025, this industry is expected to be $66.3 billion.
Wow.
You need a workforce. So I think over the next 4 years, we're going to go through a lot of growing pains, and you'll see the biggest changes in taxes
Yes.
and legal issues.
Yes, the legal issue. So I just, you know what? I'm comparing this a lot to the bootlegging days.
Yes, and that's
So
what I tell people. Yes.
that's
Yes.
where my mind goes. And it's like, okay, do you remember when they went from, banning and then having to reopening it and everything, how everything just got out of control and nobody really knew how to handle it. So it's almost like we got to go back to those books, right?
Yes. This is just like alcohol. And I tell people in 10 years from now, we're going to look back and marijuana is going to be equal to alcohol. And we would have lived through the creation of a brand new cannabis industry. Because you got to remember, everything drives money. So these big investment firms, they're raising millions.
Do you think
So,
the insurance companies are getting in on it? They might as well.
oh, yes, no.
Might as well, because they're
Yes,
taking a big liability.
yeah. And I tell people, they'll say, oh, I want to get in this. And I said, you know what? It's almost too late.
Really?
Yeah, because you know what? A lot of companies aren't going to individuals anymore, like in the earlier days. I mean, we
Yeah.
are still, but I had the primary owner send our little thing to a investment firm out in, where was the investment firm? Investment firm in New York and in California, because it's almost to the point where it's all investment firms. These investment firms, like the one, and I follow them all because stock is also an issue today. So Talterra has raised $93 million.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. These are,
Okay.
and these are the smaller ones. Privateer since 2010 has raised $129 million. So this is becoming now the big guys, the big investors.
Mm. So if there was a time to come in, it would have been what, 3 years ago, 4 years ago?
Yeah, if you were going to come into this industry and have it really easy at low cost, it would have been the time frame probably about 2010 to about
Mm.
2015, 16. You can still get in it, don't get me wrong, but you're going to have some cash.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you can still get in it, but you're going to need that money. And today, and remember, this is global too. Today, it's a $14 billion industry global, and China is leading the way in growing hemp. They're
Yes.
about
Well,
to
but
dominate.
the laws are different for hemp versus cannabis.
Yeah.
What
Well,
made you go into cannabis versus hemp?
well, hemp is cannabis, so this is the misconception. Cannabis is the plant, right?
Mm-hmm.
So cannabis, and then the subcategory, it's like the mother, right? And then the two children, I tell people. So
The
you
two
have
children,
and you
okay.
have marijuana.
I mean, I love how you explain it. That's how I talk to my clients all the time. If you want to bring a kid.
Yeah, mom is cannabis, and the two kids are hemp and marijuana.
Okay, so mom is cannabis and hemp
Yeah.
and marijuana are children. You know what? I did not know that.
Okay.
I thought cannabis and marijuana were the same thing.
Well, see, and that is why people are so afraid and scared, because let me tell you something. Hemp is finally, legal in the United States and the world. Everybody's starting to grow hemp. But what people don't understand is cannabis is being used in medical research now, right? And so I'll have a lot of people say to me, I will never consume marijuana. So I'll mess with them and I'll say, but would you consume cannabis? Because let me tell you something. Cannabis is, and that's what my YouTube channel does. I do factual things. Like I'm working one on the research of cannabis and diabetes. I don't call
Really,
it
definitely
marijuana.
gotta link up your channel to this when we roll it over to the podcast to make sure people could go on there directly.
Oh yeah, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
But I want people to understand, yeah, maybe you won't be consuming marijuana, but in that little pill the doctor gives you in 10 years,
It'll be in there.
it'll be in there.
That's funny. Wow. Okay. So that's where the medical industry is going to.
Oh, it's huge. Multi-million dollars. And then, we can always count on women wanting to be beautiful. And that was one of my last articles. And what people don't understand is cannabis is now being put into beauty products.
What? How? Like, what does it do?
Oh, it tightens your skin. It can make you look more youthful. Now, these are the claims,
Collagen?
right? So we can always count on women to create billions of dollars of sales in cosmetics and skincare. So the cannabis industry has learned that, has picked up on that, right? So you're going to see a lot of products. And once this becomes all legal, then you're going to start seeing the commercials. It's just going to be a growing industry. The only thing that could happen is the federal government keeps it illegal, which I don't see. But the states, the states are still going to have it.
So
It
worst
doesn't.
case scenario, we stay where we are right now, and one state at a time jumps on board.
If we stayed where we're at now, I will think by 2030, all states, and you know what? There's going to be a few exceptions to states because some states aren't broke. They don't need the cash. They don't need the revenue, right? Which is like Texas. Could I ever see Texas going recreational marijuana? Nope. I can see them extending their medical marijuana based on scientific evidence. If the scientist said, hey, if you take this pill and it's going to help you with your diabetes and it's a proven fact, then you're going to see every state in the nation legalize some form of cannabis, right? But there are going to be states, very few of them, that won't go to recreational or full medical. And they just don't need tax base. They don't, it's their political environment. And it'll be what it is. And remember, only certain states will allow you to buy medical marijuana from a different state.
Yes, you did mention that.
It gets complicated.
Yeah, like you can only keep it in-house. You could only exchange it
Yes.
in-house, but don't go to another house because that's not allowed.
Yes. And be careful what state you're in because it's all different.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, this topic is just, it's just very interesting because it's, like you said, we're creating something new. We're experiencing this
We're
growth.
experiencing this, yes.
So it's pretty amazing. And like I can't, like when I mix it with technology, I look at where we are with technology, and every other, how everything has changed. Even from you could now virtually bully somebody, and if you connect it to the cannabis industry, like as a parent, like now let's pull it back to like the personal level, right? Like as a parent, how does this even affect the next generation? Are they gonna see it like cigarettes? Like, how are they even gonna see it? So it's just like it's such a phenomenon to me. That it's like the only thing that you can do is educate at the end of the day. right? Because it's not like, oh my God, marijuana was just made up yesterday. No, it's been for years. The only difference is that now it's becoming legal. Now they're, recognizing it like any other substance. Like, I personally, I think alcohol is worse than marijuana, you know?
I personally do too, but other people would disagree with us, and that's okay.
Right. And that's okay, right? Because I totally agree. So to be able to say, okay, you know what, now we're actually putting it next to it, it just makes you behave in a different way. Well, it's like potatoes. you
Right.
know? So yeah, so I look at it from that, like, okay, if we integrate technology, which that's the whole reason why they have been able to do this, because when you do your research, you see all these fancy labs. Like, tell me about your lab.
Yeah. I tell people if it really makes you nervous about the medical part of it, because that's what's going to drive this too, is the medical and what cannabis may or may not be able to do. Um, US researchers, I'm writing a book about this, but this isn't a section in the book. Look, US researchers on cannabis are restricted from doing a lot of research, and they have to get special permission, and they get low grade marijuana, and the strains are bad. I mean, this all a big scientific thing. But the US researchers haven't been allowed and still aren't allowed to do what they need to do. However, I tell people, follow Israel. Israel has been allowed to grow their own cannabis and do their own research for years. They are the global leaders on medical research for cannabis. So I expect out of that country over the next 10 years, it's going to be amazing.
Wow, it sounds like it. And I am looking forward to do some books of these. I'm in the process of just growing, and that will be something that, I would be looking forward to learn more in the future. And yeah, you're right. It's just, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I tell accountants and CPAs, go to these seminars, learn what's going on. This is a fabulous career avenue to specialize in this.
Yes, I agree. I think it's like Bitcoin, and it's like, I'm not saying it's like it, but it's an opportunity for growth.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
it's
Yes.
it's a huge opportunity for growth that if you're not jumping on it, I don't know
Mhm.
what you're doing.
Yeah, no, it's true. My account, I mean, I have an accountant in Oklahoma, although I live in Texas, but I'm not getting rid of him because of that business there. I mean, he can do I don't pay state taxes, so all he has to do is federal and my Oklahoma business tax because I'm a partner in that business. But I didn't get rid of him. But I'm going to tell you something. He at first was not going to keep me as a client.
Really?
Yeah, there are a lot of lawyers and accountants that will not get involved in this industry for personal reasons, or they just don't want to deal with the complexity of the tax system. They just don't want to
Mm.
do it, right? But he said to me, he goes, I've been doing your taxes for years and we've even become friends. He goes, I can't turn you down. He goes, but he made it very clear that he disagrees with, right,
Mhm.
the industry.
Yeah, yeah,
So if we didn't know each other for 7 or 8 years, he may have dropped me.
yeah. That's where those relationships,
Yep.
right? That we're always talking about as business owners, building those good relationships with your team, to
Hmm.
make sure that they back you up. And this is a great example of it. Uh,
Yeah.
they already know you. They already know your profile. They already know you, how you do business. So yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I could totally see that, going against people's beliefs, you know.
Hmm.
But if you just look, I tell my clients all the time, I don't want to hear about the news. I want to hear where the money's going, because that's what drives the news,
Yeah.
right? Don't
Yes.
follow the money. It will tell you what's going
Yeah.
on.
I tell money. Yes, that's all you
Love
have to do. See, and the marijuana industry is just now getting lobbyists to lobby Congress. So see, you're going to see that increase too. So follow the money.
Yes,
That is
yes,
a clear indication of what's going to happen.
yes. It'll, yeah, see what picture it, you know, it's going to tell you a story. It's just a matter of, do you know how to read the story? And I think that's the
Yeah.
part, like you said, the complexity that comes in as, you know, as an accountant, an advisor, even like I can't even, when is this going to hit like the financial advisors? You know what I'm saying? To be able to sell it as an investment product to one of your investment policies, like they do your mutual funds, or you
Yes,
know the the stocks
it
and stuff.
is. Yes, because I know an investment firm here in Texas, they're not mine, I just a friend of mine, and they have a small portion. Their investment firm, and they do millions of dollars a year. This is a pretty big investment firm. 5% of their portfolio is in cannabis.
Wow, see, that's nice. 5% is not even a lot. That's
No,
for them to experiment with. Like, let's see how
yes.
this goes. That's really what it is. Like, I'm not going to use that money. I'm willing to lose it if it bombs.
Yep. Now, my investment firm's in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and they have more. They haven't told me the percentage, but you know, I told them the same story, and they said, "Well, we have more." Now, that investment firm deals with billions. So, you know, calculating their loss, they can calculate probably a higher percentage because they're going to win in another area. However, they're taking a little bit of a risk,
Yeah.
right? So it has hit the investment firms, and these investment firms are raising, like I said, multi-million dollars. They are pumping money into this industry like crazy because they expect a return.
Yeah. So it'll be, so then I think, what do you think, maybe 5 years before it hits the actual consumer?
I think, yeah, like right, I mean, every morning I watch marijuana stocks because I'm watching it so I can write articles, of course,
Yeah,
and then write a book maybe in about 5 years. Again, this book coming out here in the next couple of months, kind of basic, but then
yeah,
I'd like to look at the tax aspect of it and the finances, because that is going to be historical, because we're living through this now, and it's just going to create this fabulous historical timeline.
yes, yes. It already started.
Yeah, I mean, marijuana stock is extremely risky. The market for that, I mean, this is a new business concept.
Yes,
We've never lived through this. At least I didn't. I haven't, right?
right, right.
And so the markets show that instability.
So if you were to advise, follow this company for you to know, you know, like in the, you know, in the index funds, they say, you know, follow the S&P 500, follow the NASDAQ. For this industry, who can we follow to kind of, for your average investor, your average person that is not immersed in it like you are?
No, this is what I tell people. It's extremely risky. And for people that know nothing about this industry and don't follow it like I do,
Yeah,
uh, this is what I tell them. You don't invest in the marijuana industry unless the money you have is useless. You
yes, that's a very good advice.
you do not need it, because I've been trading in marijuana stock now. My oldest stock is probably from 2016, so it's 4 years old now. And a lot of my stocks have gone bankrupt. A
Wow.
lot of my stocks have remained the same, and I have a few that have gone up. But it's money that it's useless money to me.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't.
coffee money that you were going to blow anyway.
Yeah, it's my coffee money that I was going to spend anyway. And I have seen people, because, you know, now I know all the traders, you know, because I've been in there so long. And you can tell the traders that know this market and the people that don't. Because the people that don't are losing money. They're just it's horrific. They're crying. And I just go to them and I say, look, this is not for everyone. This is just not for everyone.
Not at this stage. Definitely.
No.
not
Oh,
at this-
no. And I tell people, look, hey, don't rush into this because it's going to be here for a long time. And it's going to turn into, like you and I agree, the alcohol business. So look at Budweiser stock, but what's going on is everybody's trying to get in on these dollar stocks, penny stocks, $10 stocks.
Mhm.
It's going to be the next Budweiser, right?
Yeah.
You can't do that. I mean, you can do that. It's
But you don't know the outcome. That's why they're called junk bonds or
yes,
junk stocks, because you
junk
don't know.
stock.
You don't
Yes,
really know what this junk stock's gonna do. So you gotta
yes.
know when to, put in a call and when to put in a put, because you just don't know.
No, you don't know. It's so risky. And I've had more marijuana stock fail than I've had success. I've only had in the last, 4 years, one marijuana stock that worked out. I bought it as a penny stock and it went up to $10. I'm still holding on to it. Most people would have cashed that in, but I think it's going to go even higher. But most of my stock have tanked or they're just remain the same.
Yeah. You're. And you know what? I love talking to investors because everybody has, like, at the end of the day, we're all looking for growth, right? We're all looking for that, what is that, Lucky Charms image?
Yes.
The pot of whole gold at the end of the rainbow, right?
Yep.
You invest, and you don't just invest your money, you immerse yourself into the culture.
Mhm. And what makes the market hardest is the taxes.
Yes.
You just can't, it's a hard market to invest in because of the tax base. I mean, they could go bankrupt in a heartbeat, whether they're big or small. I mean, the big one to follow is Medman out of Colorado. I mean, their ups and downs are just unbelievable. But that's an example of how extreme this market is. So until it's legalized and
It's
until
gonna be volatile like that.
yeah,
Yeah,
you
because there's no control. It's almost like there's this box, and you could just go up and down in this little box, but it's almost like contained but uncontrolled.
yes, and you got to remember you're investing in something that's illegal.
Yes, yeah, because the federal government hasn't said yes. They'll say
Yeah.
yes to a bunch of weird stuff.
Yeah, and any day this could all blow up or be extremely successful. You're rolling the dice.
Yes. So it's a risky business, but for the risky investor, this is like the ride of their life because of the adrenaline that it comes with.
Oh, well, that's what I was just going to say. The adrenaline and the risk involved in this, you're absolutely right.
This is who this market is especially for. You can handle that kind of risk and reward, because that's just how you function, right? Versus, your moderate, your conservative investor. No, this is going to create a lot of anxiety. Stay away from it.
Yes. Like I trade with my brother every morning. He will not touch a cannabis stock.
Yeah.
He won't do it.
Yeah, he wants for it to be safe. He wants it for it to be conformed. He doesn't, like he said, you said earlier, he doesn't want to spend his coffee money on that when he's enjoying his coffee. Why would he do that?
Oh yeah, he laughs at me. I'm like, okay. No, he won't touch it.
Yeah, I love it. So all your investors, obviously, like I can even picture, your meetings and, the conversations that you guys have. So I would love to be a fly on the wall for one of those. Well, guys, thank you again for joining us. This is Ruby Velasquez with MRB Financial with our special guest, Miss Dr. Ling. Please introduce and say goodbye to our listeners.
Hi, everyone, and I appreciate you listening today, and I appreciate the interview time. And I hope you enjoy what we discussed today. And please follow me.
Yes, yes, please follow her. She is awesome. So a little feedback about how I convinced her. She was my business law professor for my master's program. So when I was telling her that I was getting my YouTube channel, she was like, oh, you gotta let me know when so she could be my first subscriber. So I did.
I love it when we're all successful, right?
Yes, yes. That drives the boat, right? We all got a boat. Well, thank you so much for joining us again today. It was so good to talk to you. I do look forward to talking with you again, and I wish